lion. George Simmons was a sculptor who killed himself because the lion's gait was incorrectly that of a domestic cat. He'd gone and carved it standing with its front right leg forward when everyone knows it should have been his left. If you're going to go to the trouble of sculpting the king of the jungle, then at least read up on their standing posture, George. Well, actually, that's absolutely, completely and totally not true, the right leg forward thing. It's just one of those high-class rumours people believe is fact. Turns out, George had carved that lion perfectly. Tragic. He'd killed himself because of a right leg that was wrong, but it wasn't, it was right. So he needn't have killed himself after all. Well, actually, that's not true either. It's just a story I was told by a man who lies. That poor man thinks he's Elvis, walking along Broad Street with his white blazer and boots, chest out, hairs out, flares out. If you told me he really was Elvis, I'd have believed you, but I'm a particularly gullible Gertrude. Everyone knows him, of course they do, he's the king. I wonder how he ended up here. I wonder if he wonders how he ended up here. I wonder if he chose it or if it just happened to him. Maybe he was born here. People don't get to choose where they're born. I was born here, just like my mum and her mum before her, but my dad was born in Istanbul, and my other dad was born in London, and his mum and dad were born in Guyana, but they all ended up here, just like Elvis. Just like the lion with perfect posture who stands proudly in the middle of Forbury Gardens while people gossip about his gait. 2 kings in one town. I hope it's big enough for the both of them. The chicken and the lamb. The quality of the kebab tells the quality of the town, which is weird because my dad's kebabs were quality. I'm not saying the town wasn't quality, but it definitely wasn't as quality as the kebabs. Luckily for the town, but annoyingly for me, it has increased in quality since I left. Or maybe I just didn't appreciate its quality when I was there. Did you know that if you marinate something for long enough, it tastes much better than it should? Chicken sheesh is a prime example. My dad's chicken marinated for hours before it made its way onto the kebab van. A bland lump of beige flesh transformed into a taste sensation. Lambs don't need the same kind of marinating that a chicken does. Lambs are naturally tasty, young, fresh, juicy. Memories are perfect for marinating. Memories in their inceptive moment are just things happening, but when they're marinated over time, they develop depth of flavour. They taste of nostalgia, sweet and warm, with a slight pang of heartburn. The same could be said for stewing, but you need to be careful with a stew. If you let something stew for too long, it bubbles over and suddenly the stirrer of the stew is stewing in a bitter broth. Lamb is perfect in a stew. A little lamb can handle the heat. I've never understood the phrase, "you're too chicken." Chickens aren't cowardly. They walk straight into their killer's hands every day. They push eggs with an uncompromising girth right out of themselves without any complaint. Chickens deserve more respect. So do lambs. If it wasn't for chickens and lambs, I wouldn't have had a new bike in April, or a holiday in July, or a school uniform in September. That's why I don't eat them anymore. The irony of choosing not to eat meat when I owe my comfortable childhood to it is not lost on me. We used to pretend that bacon was turkey and not pork. That's just a little trick you can pull if your dad's a lapsed Muslim who loves the taste of pig. Someone got stabbed behind his kebab van. Another lamb slaughtered by 3 lions on a shirt. He went back to work the next night. He wasn't chicken. Stick insect. I didn't have a very good track record with pets. My mum bought me a pregnant hamster named Chassie Chuckaboo who ate her own babies the day they were born. What kind of mother eats her own babies? I found out it was because I'd touched them. Animals don't like humans getting too involved too early on. Still, we let the mother take the blame. My mum told me that when I was born, my head smelled just like corned beef. Perhaps she was hungry from all the pushing and there was a little tiny bit of her that wanted to eat me too, just like Chassie Chuckaboo. Or maybe she was lucky enough to have a vagina wafting with the aromas of corned beef. Anyway, stick insects. Everyone was getting them, so I wanted them too. I put a couple of twiglety creatures in a plastic container with slits in the top so they could breathe. When I came down to wish them a good morning, they'd escaped through the slits and were now shriveled up, dead and dry on the curtain. Stick insects stuck in their escape. Escape! What a brilliant idea! My little sister sat on the grass as I explained my plan. I told her it was all too much for me and I was getting out. She couldn't come with me and she couldn't tell anyone where or why I'd gone, but she just needed to know that I loved her and I was escaping forever. I ran out of the cul-de-sac and when I turned the corner I heard her cry. Not a child's cry. A proper, guttural, grown-up cry. My dad was loading pita breads into the kebab van and he asked her what was wrong and she spoke through her sobs. I can't tell you. I wish I could marinate that memory so it tasted better. I didn't escape. I got as stuck as the stick insects. Luckily for me, I climbed back through the slits and said sorry. The codfish. Remember when Cemetery Junction made it onto the big screen? If you don't know Cemetery Junction, then all you need to know is that it's a junction and it's got a cemetery in the middle of it. My mum used to drop me in Cemetery Junction at my auntie's when my other dad came to visit. My auntie's from St Vincent, another one who ended up here. She lived really close to Mr Cod, like stupidly close to Mr Cod. So close my cousins could literally walk there whenever they liked. I don't know why I was so enamoured by living near Mr Cod when there was a kebab van on the driveway right outside my bedroom window. I guess the grass is always greener and the fast food is always faster on the other side. One time we were waiting for cod and chips and my cousin was pissed off with her mate because, in her words, she keeps going like she's white. I went home and kissed my teeth and my mum told me off, presumably because she thought I was going like I was black. In Cemetery Junction, the boy's mum says to him, "Why do you want to go to Paris? There's parts of Reading you ain't seen." There's definitely parts of Reading I haven't seen. I'm sometimes bothered by that. The mouse. I was the first person in my family to go to university. Everyone was very proud of that, even though I'm also the first person in my family to not have a wage or a pension or a car. First, I went to the most faraway place I'd ever heard of, the North, then predictably to London. The only similarity between my homes in Manchester and London were that I shared them with small furry housemates who didn't pay any rent. They stayed up all night, squeaked a shy hello, and then boldly rooted through my rubbish. I once lived in an empty old townhouse in Soho, and a man came round and said his mother had been killed in the back room upstairs. A few Google searches later, and I discovered the tale of the woman who got hit round the head with a shoemaker's last in 1952. In the back room. In the back room that was now my bedroom. Imagine that image etched in your mind's eye before bed. I could see it as clearly as if I was watching a black and white film. The soundtrack sent to me from home via Oscar Wilde's ballad from Reading Jail. He did not wear his scarlet coat, for blood and wine are red, and blood and wine were on his hands, when they found him with the dead, the poor dead woman whom he loved, and murdered in her bed. One of my furry housemates came into that bedroom and ate half a chocolate bar. I must have left it in the same spot as the shoemaker's last had last been laid for it to come to such a sorry end. Bad things were destined to happen in that bedroom. Silent screams and cigarettes on the windowsill and black jumpers were meant for that bedroom. We never had unwanted housemates in my family home unless the cat brought them in, and that made them guests. The Owl and the Dragonfly. Owls like to move house every 6 years, so if you've only just realised you've got an owl in your attic, you better know it'll be living with you for the next 71.9999 months. My nanny Marge told me this story about the owl every time I visited her. She'd forget that she told me, but she'd remember the story. Same words, same emphasis, same inflection every time. Bertie, that goes to the day centre, he had one in his garden. He fed it and looked after it, and they only stay for 6 years. He wrote down when it came, and 6 years to the day that owl flew. Now how do they know? They're so clever. Which animal charity did Nanny Marge give to? Yes, the donkey sanctuary, obviously. She was interested in owls, but she felt sorry for donkeys. She said donkeys bear the mark of Christ on their foreheads. I suppose you'd expect to be given a little thank you prezzy for carrying a pregnant virgin all the way to Bethlehem. Marge was adopted and never met her birth parents. She didn't want to impose herself on people that might not want to be imposed upon. I think of her when I caught the bus on Jackson's Corner. She would have caught that bus after a night of dancing. She met my granddad at one of those dances. When his coffin was lowered into the ground, I sat next to one of the muddy mounds and a dragonfly fluttered by and settled beside me. It was the first time I'd ever seen a dragonfly in my 13-year-old life. Throughout the day, I was visited by dragonflies. As soon as I was old enough, and by old enough I mean as soon as I could put makeup on well enough to look old enough, I went to the tattoo place on the Oxford Road, and I got them to stab a dragonfly into my left shoulder blade. In later years, I read that dragonflies are often a symbol for those grieving the loss of a loved one. Suddenly, the girl with the dragonfly tattoo doesn't feel her grief is so unique. She realises a symbol shared is better than no symbol at all. She wonders whether she should get a tattoo for Nanny Marge. It doesn't seem fair for him to have an inky permanence and not her. Problem is, she doesn't want to get a tattoo of a donkey. She decides she'll get one of an owl and have it lasered off 6 years later. The lion again. If Nanny Marge was getting fish and chips, she would only get cod. She said that haddock was a bottom feeder, so it had worms in it. She also said that my sister and I were her little treasures. She also said that paedophiles should be hanged. Wise old owls are complex animals. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. My granddad had that written on a scrap piece of paper in his wallet. Everyone thinks that Eleanor Roosevelt said it, but apparently that's a rumour. If enough people believe a rumour, it becomes legend, just like George Simmons and his right-footed lion. Now that I don't eat chicken, I eat replica chicken. Replicas always suffer because people know how good the original is, just like the replica of the Bayeux Tapestry that sits in the Reading Museum. People might look at it and say, "Oh my God, honestly, it looks just like the real thing. You wouldn't tell the difference, would you?" Deep down, you know it's a dirty fake. Everyone fakes it till they make it. Reading has duped people into thinking it's a city by having big city energy. To become a city in the olden days, the town would have to ask permission from the king. I reckon Elvis turned them down. It's the kind of thing you'd expect from a king who doesn't wear a crown. Perhaps he prefers to be a big fish in a small pond. My mum asked me that once. Do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or a small fish in a big pond? But I never wanted to be a fish. I wanted to be a lion.
That was the day we searched for Christopher's brother. On a red burnt day at the end of summer, 3 of us in shorts and t-shirts and armed with sticks in our hands, we searched for Christopher's brother. The idea to get on bikes hadn't been mine. It wasn't mine. It had come with Dave, who'd called on me that morning with his bike laid down against the drive. He'd called on me and said we should get Nige. We jumped on our bikes and hit the estate. We flipped through the gears, gathering pace, sun boiling our backs, hot air in our faces, and past all the houses, the windows and doors and drives, the front lawns all yellow and parched, and men in shorts watering their grass, and the Ford Escorts filmed in dust. And our bikes down the road and round the estate, me and my mate Dave. Dave was taller than me and is taller than me, and like me wasn't born here but way outside Liverpool, and brought down words with him like brush pan and lolly ice and a dog called Gypsy. I was here at 4 and had skinned my knee on the day we saw the house. My mum and dad wanted a house in the south. They'd met at the dance in Fife. Instead of whip hen, he said sorry. She liked him because he smelled of soap. And this place, this estate, was a place to call home, a place for families, because it's safe. People need to believe their homes are safe. We scattered the bikes on the drive and Nige was in the garage getting the ball. A Mitre Pro, this ball was loved and cared for like a baby. We took turns in keeping it pumped and buffed and not scuffed by playing with this ball on concrete with a curb for a goal, in cul-de-sacs with no passing cars or neighbours' plants. This ball was just for AstroTurf or grass. Nige dropped the ball in a Tesco bag and threw it to me. My turn, it seemed, to take this ball on my bike. "You off there, Nige?" says his dad from the garage where he stood in the shadows looking for screws or boxes full of their old life in London. And Nige doesn't turn round. He's got his foot on the pedal. "Cantley," says his dad, and I nod, and we set off for Cantley. I can't remember the day it happened, or the night, or what people said, but they said something had happened, and it was something about Christopher's brother. There was an assembly one day, and we sat in the hall, all on the floor, not next to a girl, but I would sit next to a girl, and the girls would shine their patent shoes with spit from fingers licked. And we'd sit in the hall on the polished floor, legs crossed, looking, age 6, everyone's a fidget, and the teacher came into the hall with a man dressed all in navy, his helmet carried under his arm, and us all heads cocked, looking up and whispering, 'cause he's a man and a stranger. And he said his name was P.C. Blewett. His voice was soft and lilting like Simon Westall, and he rested his hands on his beach ball stomach, and he looked down at us and asked if any one of us knew about stranger danger. He wanted to show us a film. A TV was rolled in on wheels. We watched a film on the TV about a dog called Pippin. There was a man in a car with its door open. At the end, we all got stickers. It takes 15 minutes to get to Cantley, and 20 if Nige stops for drinks in Norries with the pounds he got in pocket money to spend on Dr. Pepper. And if he stops for Dr. Pepper, we wait outside the shop and scuff our trainers because it makes them cool. Dave can do wheelies, and he wheelies up and down the pavement. I check the ball and think about Cantley on the other side of the woods. On this burning day, I must have noticed the sun cool under the trees as we rode through the dark of the wood. The smell of the wood and the earth and the feeling of a world you don't belong in. On the left is a pool, a dark pool full of leaves and rotten sticks and water that's never moved. We follow the track. "You reckon it's free?" shouts Dave from the back. And I'm at the front and look to the end of the track, towards the fields, and I shout back, "If Pat Sharp's not there." And Nigel laughs and Dave laughs and someone sings Funhouse, and we all sing Funhouse as we ride fast out the wood to the edge of the fields. The open fields of football pitches, watered green, freshly mown and freshly marked. His name was Mark. That was the first time I'd heard his name, and I heard his name because suddenly everyone was saying it. There'd been a fair in town, in the carnival fields down Wellington Road. He'd gone on his bike, they said. He was 7 and went on his bike to the fair. My mum said he hadn't come back that night, so his mum and dad went down to the fair and they searched everywhere and they found his bike. It's the AstroTurf we're here for, and if you get lucky you'll get the goals nearest the path. There's a high fence behind the goal, and Nige gets ribbed for always missing, for skying his shots over the fence and into the drink. And this pitch is surrounded by fields and air, and we've spent hours and hours running and kicking and laughing and shoving and wedgies and tackles and laughing at Dave and laughing at me for thinking I'm Brian Robson and laughing at Nige and fights about nothing and 60 seconds and World Cup and 3 and in, and no one ever wants to go in goal, and if it rains and if it snows we still go, and Clarkie comes down and tries a worldie and the goalie gloves smell of damp and rot, and we play and we lose ourselves in the games and matches. Hours pass and hours pass, and we leave only when it's too dark. For these hours, this is our place. This is our home. As we stop our bikes and look across the pitch, no luck today. At either end are bigger boys. If we'd been faster and rushed and not stopped for Dr. Pepper. We look to each other. I pull a face and Dave mutters, and Nige wheels his bike round. We're not going back, I say, but we know what it means. As the days passed, they realised he wasn't lost. The fair packed up and left. His face was on the front page of the local paper, his school photo, his thick mop of ginger hair, white jumper and zigzag pattern. There were posters in the shop windows. Missing. Have you seen Mark? At 6 or 7 I was too young to know what missing meant. And maybe I thought he hadn't been found because the grown-ups hadn't been looking closely enough. After school I walked home with my mum and sister. I veered away into the copse that lines the street, where the path passes through trees parallel to the street. My mum must have been watching me, but I scoured the bushes and trees. I'm hidden from the street. Maybe if I looked hard, I'll find a foot or a shoe, and on the end of that will be a leg, and I'll follow it into the bushes to see Mark sitting there, looking back at me. When did they stop talking about him? When did the posters come down and the story slip off the front page of the local paper? The police must have done house-to-house calls, searching fields and ditches. No news is good news or bad news or no news at all, and every now and again there'd be a cordon on fields near Wellington Road. And Mum said they'd been digging. In towns like mine, people change but nothing changes, and we all have to get on. And then on anniversaries, Mum might see his family in the local paper. Poor people. And people say poor people, and there's an edge to the way people speak of them because they were poor people. It starts with a porno at the end of the wood, and we're walking back through the wood, bikes now pushed back towards the wood. Nige finds it in a hedge and he's squealing and laughing and holding it up like the FA Cup, and it's missing a front cover, and we all drop our bikes and gather and look down at the pages. And with a stick we flick through the pages and study each page like it's an encyclopedia. And Nige is on his knees peering at the pages for a better view. We all rip out our favourites and push them into our pockets. The rest we push down, we make a hole in the mud, and we push the pages into the hole with the heels of our trainers. It's when I got back to my bike and get my drink that I notice it. I glint in the bush and I push back the brambles and see it suspended amongst the branches. A boy's shoe, upside down, black with laces hanging upside down. So what, says Dave as he lobs stones into the pool. Bit weird to lose a shoe. Whose is it? Nige shrugs. I turn the shoe over. Size 12, child size. I have that look, and they look to say, don't think what you're thinking. Time ticks and we're running out of afternoon. And Nige says he's not going to make it not into the A stream, that he knows me and Dave will go. He's not as clever, is what he thinks. So at Crispin's he'll be in the B stream. That's what he thinks. But I don't, and I say so. You're not as thick as you think, I say. And he grins, and Dave says he'll cycle to big school if his mum lets him, and I say I might too. There'll be kids there from the other schools. Weird. It won't affect us, will it? Will it? We pick up our sticks and keep searching for stuff in the bushes. Bottles, plastic, packets of skips and rusting cans of links. We pile them up, pull them out the bushes and pile them up. Lighters, fag packets, cones and wrapping. We pull it all out with our sticks. We look to the shoe, the boy's shoe. Shut up if you're saying it's his, says Dave. And I say, I'm not saying it is, but keep looking. And we keep looking in the brambles and ditches with our sticks, and I don't know if we're really playing. It was Dave who sees the shape in the water, and me and Nige who squat down by the edge of the pool, sticks in hand, then broken branches to try and drag it, to tip it, turn it round and... Stop, says Dave from the side, and we look up. We shouldn't... what if it is? You don't think it is, I say. And Dave says and looks to Nige, who says nothing but looks to me. I know it's not, but what if it is, then what? We'll tell someone, the police or someone. Dave steps back and shakes his head. They'll tell my dad and he'll say, what were you doing? And what do I say? He'll say, stop being a pussy, says Nige. He takes a step into the pond. The shape in the middle of the pool is covered in bin bag black plastic the size of a rucksack. I hand him the branch and grab his jacket as he stretches and his foot sinks a bit, and I stumble a bit and he stretches and catches the plastic and draws it in, and I'm sinking in and we draw it in. You touch it. No, you touch it. I'm not touching it. You wanted it. You wanted to see what it is. I never. You said you did. You just see. I didn't say pull it in. You should touch it, says Nige. You're the one who thinks it's him. These small towns are the towns where nothing's supposed to happen. These market towns with willies and boots and small churches and pubs with hanging baskets, brownies and cubs, pet shops and block paving and poppy appeals and twin towns in Belgium. Lives behind closed doors in cul-de-sacs. It's the tiny things that ripple forever. We stand over the thing, and the sun's going in and the thing is wet and black on the ground. What do you think? You think it's him? Yeah, I think it's him. It could be anything, but we found the shoe and this is where you would, in these woods, wouldn't you? Dave says he's getting colder, and I nod and tap the thing with my toe, and it's soft inside and I step back. We should keep looking, I say, for other evidence so we're certain. And we pick up our sticks and go back to the bushes, flicking the ground, and no one really says nothing. And the sun's going in and the wood feels darker. Dave says he's getting colder, and I say, Nige, does your sister still know Christopher? Christopher who, says Nige. I say Mark's brother, and he shakes his head. I dunno. What shall we do, says Dave by the thing. Who here's going to unpick the plastic? We gather round. What if it is? What if it isn't? What if it's banknotes and we could be rich? Nige says he's getting colder. He better be getting in. So, you gonna do it? Dave stoops down and picks up the thing, and in his arms, all black and plastic, now it looks like it could be Christopher's brother. He holds him at arm's length, looks out across the water, looks back, and we look at each other. He throws him into the water. He splashes down and we watch the ripples. We watch him bobbing, saying nothing. He then starts to sink. In my head I'd say something. I look to the water. Mark floats and sinks.
transport and your boarding cards.
I burnt the cash, the banknotes, and the gold bars. It wasn't easy. It rained overnight, so everything got a bit soggy. Had to tip the water out of the drum, get rid of the ash that was wet at the bottom. Cleaning it was a pain in the arse. It got everywhere. It's so quiet now. Is it normally this peaceful? What else do I need to do? I can't exactly ask anyone here, as if they would have the right answer. You would know, but I can't rely on you anymore. I should have paid more attention. To family, at school. You've got plenty anyway. You can probably buy everything you need up there now with the amount I gave you. Don't worry, plenty more where that came from. Seymour was pretty well stocked up. Bought everything in bulk. Might as well. And not just instant ramen. I love the way the cash feels. You know how Monopoly money is blatantly fake, but real money is silky and velvety? Well, this is coarse and grainy. It's called joss paper. Did you know that? I could be teaching you for once. It's made from bamboo paper, although the cheap stuff is rice paper. I love it though, it reminds me of home. When things were better. Have you noticed the money starts at 10,000? 10,000 what though? There's no unit. I wonder what 10,000 gets you. It would suck if it only got you like a room and a bedsit. 10,000. Buys you bread and water. Making up numbers to sound good. What a scam. Stupid, isn't it? The rate of inflation must be skyrocketing up there with the amount of money that's being burnt. The living are saturating the economy. Not exactly helping with the macroeconomics, are we? Do you remember when we were kids? We would go cycling, just the two of us. Probably because Mum wanted us out the house. We rode to Palmer Park once and I couldn't keep up with you. I tried to take a shortcut through the parking bays but ended up steering too sharply. I remember hitting the ground and my knee got so scraped up. The grit and gravel seemed to stick to my wound. You basically carried me home. I don't know how you did it. Mum banned us from going there after that. Bullmarsh Park was further away, but no concrete to fall on. I wish I was back there with you, in the summer, under a chestnut tree, watching people play cricket. We used to take a football and kick it about a bit, until a guy from the cricket club came along and told us to stop. You'd always feign innocence, and we'd always get away with it. In the autumn, we'd pick up as many chestnuts from that field as we could, roast them when we got home. For a Wong family tradition, it was surprisingly well organised. All three generations with clearly defined roles. Pawpaw was the gatherer, quietly did her own thing, invariably ended up with the most, all those years of experience. We teamed up with either Mum or Dad. They would hold a bag, and we would pick up. The cases were really spiky. You definitely knew when one fell on you. In fact, it was you that got bonked on the head more times than anyone else. Every year. You would get so grumpy after that and eventually would have to leave. Just unlucky. In fact, there was this one time where it happened only 5 minutes in. Oh, you proper sucked. We couldn't help but find it funny. The chestnut that fell by your feet, you picked it up to throw it, I guess? But it was still in its case. You howled. Mum tried to help you, but you just stomped home all indignant. You didn't do that again. That was the last time we all did that. Look, can you help me or not? The water from the ground is starting to seep into my trainers. Happy birthday, by the way. I made you a magic 8-ball. Took ages. It's made of paper, so once it's burnt, you'll get it. Hopefully. That's how it works, right? Showing reverence to one's deceased family isn't exactly environmentally friendly, so you better get it. And be sure to use it too. The burnt offerings are meant to float up and reach you. More like the carbon monoxide would end up choking us all. Maybe that's the price those left behind have to pay. It's a double whammy, causing hyperinflation in heaven and destroying the environment in one fell swoop. At least I've given up meat. Well, shopping for it anyway. The odd steak on a night out isn't too bad, right? Did you ever think that would happen? And no, it's not a fad. I'm really going to do it. Starting tomorrow. I bought your favourite for later. Silnga, with pancakes and plum sauce. Had to. Seeing as it's the first one without you. Dad's gone back to Hong Kong. Back to his business. I'm low-key annoyed Mum isn't here. She says hello. She says it's an inauspicious day to be at Reading Cremmy. But sod that, I wanted to talk to you. It's her way of telling you she doesn't like what you're doing. The guilt trip. Her speciality. But I had to see you. You're right though, the old school superstitions. Total bollocks. But you believed in the power of the 8-ball, so you know. The last time we were both here was at Gong Gong's funeral. You were saying goodbye to him, and all I can remember was the celebrant banging on about Jesus. The man never went to church. And it went on for twice as long as it needed to, because he said everything in English and then Cantonese. He talked about belonging, being part of a community. It sounded like recruitment. Fuck off. People need to feel like they're part of something. I get it. But there's a time and a place for that shit. And the worst part was, everyone else was agreeing. All around us, nodding their heads, as if they'd written the Gospels themselves. We got outside and the sun blinded me. The incense was everywhere. I couldn't get away. I was wrapped up in it, clung onto my clothes for weeks afterwards, just like its memory. If I get a waft, I'm seething all over again. Why can I remember what the fucking celebrant was doing, but not how to do this? He came up to Mum afterwards with an affirmation for her. He said, completely unsolicited, of course, "Down days don't defeat me. They're an opportunity to feel better tomorrow." I mean, what? Wrapped up in his own self-importance. And I remember thinking, there's no tomorrow. Not when I feel like this. How is this an opportunity? There is no future. When you died, I couldn't face it. I should have been at your funeral, I'm sorry. But I couldn't be there if it was going to be anything like Gong Gong's. The incense, the platitudes, the celebrant, the inauthenticity. My socks are soaked now. What a fucking stupid idea this was. What's wrong with me? Why is my own culture eluding me? The chestnut. Gogo, sick fan. Big brother, eat rice. Gogo, yum jiao. Big brother, drink wine. Koko, yum cha. Big brother, drink tea. I'm starting to remember.
Lean in and listen a while I draw a map of the multiple magical memories and the places and the people I pass by. Because we are connected. We are connections, you and I. Like our streets with our alleys, like our rivers with our brooks. We are tributaries of this town. We are connected. My Reading, town of towns. Town of two rivers, of Kennet and its celebrity sibling the Thames. Red brick tall chimney terraces all gathered at the north, east, south, west of its centre, where daily, dutifully, the other town masses flock to dock in the dizzying, spiralling car parks to receive the wisdom of the oracle shops. When really it's the wisdom of those who call this their home, those from the ding, the dingers, who will foretell the honest, the practical prophecy. So you'd better listen, and you'd better listen well. We've got an IDR that will drive us all to hell. The Holybrook's full and the riverside is rammed, so you'd better take the bus. It's better by bus. Have you seen our award-winning, planet-loving buses? They're the best of the buses. The best. Take my hand. My Reading. Broad Street, Friar Street, St. Mary's Butts, Cheapside, Castle and Gun. Take my hand as we cut through Union Street, holding our breath as we run. But nobody knows where Union Street is. Nobody ever knows if you ask. It's called Smelly Alley. It's Smelly Alley, silly, that the wet fish and dead flesh aromas don't linger, and it won't be smelly for very much longer. It's those smells and it's those names that will connect us, so it's Smelly Alley forever and forever. So, time rubs out our stories and planners redraw our maps, and it's happened throughout history on much bigger, more terrible scales. And this one's no biggie, and I'm not one to dwell, but I've got something I've been needing to get off my chest. And I know that my family stand by me, so I think it's best if we have a little chat about the Broad Street Mall. Well, my geography's not great, but as far as I can tell, it's not on Broad Street at all. So what the hell? And it had a name, less grandiose, but more fitting, which was born from the history of the area where it's still sitting. But now I'm dwelling. So they can have the Broad Street Mall, call it what they will, but behind their backs we're still calling it the Butts for generations and generations and generations to come. No, the Butts just wasn't built to be a mall, and it's too small, pal, to be a mall. And we've never been certain of the pronunciation anyhow, because this is Reading. Reading, UK. Not the one in Pennsylvania in the USA. The Butts Centre. And it's no Graceland, I know, but some say Elvis hangs out there most days. And that he'll sing you a hound or a wonder of you if you just take the time to connect. Let's connect, me and you. Take my hand. Take my hand, and we'll hang in all the places that are free here. All the unpeopled places that cost nothing and are spaces with space for us to be. Just to be here. In this thronging town of two-lane traffic, bored, rigid businesses and work-weary bodies and faces, it can be so hard to find a sweet, simple solitude here, to find yourself gladly and simply alone here. Let's find a hush amongst the heedless rushing. See the commuters and the children come recklessly gushing out of our state-of-the-art, sumptuous, shiny new station right at the heart of our beautiful, shoot an arrow through my heart, red, grey, cream, brick town. Take my hand. We'll find that comforting hush in the halls of our museum close by, where once when I was young, the approach was heralded by the little thrum-thrum of the resident bees, whose coming and going could be seen from the ground. And, I recall, the pleasure of looking up to see that they had their very own entrance between the bricks of the town hall walls. Once inside, tiptoeing with a deeply rooted reverie, we'd creep past the nasty archaeological unearthed skeleton, complete with dagger in its open, bony form, stopping to be beguiled at glass-cased, live-slinking slowworms, and their sad pinioned four-winged companions arranged on trays all around. But the jewel in the crown of these tranquil galleries, the very pride of our town, besides the oracle, naturally, is our great, big, actual-size tapestry facsimile, our very own Victorian Bayeux, don't you know? And did you know? Of course you do. About the skillful society of women who laboured long on our linen, and whose precision kept it tight to the original and true, except for the uniquely Victorian addendum which adds a special little touch to this yarn. Under the guidance of the V&A and its imperative "that said," they stitched on many sets of fine embroidered underpants to cover up some private parts with their colourful threads. There are layer upon layer of histories and lives embroidered into the very fabric of this place, and each precious part of every person's story is indelibly embellished with the who and the what and the how of every single face. We are an ecology. We are tower blocks and terraces and gardens and flats. We are alleyways and underpasses and squares. We are languages and voices and graffiti and song. We are conversation. We are mural. We are prayer. We are 342,000 vibrations in 61 kilometres square. Can you feel it? Take my hand. There's a flint-flecked arch leading us in gentle beckoning shade down and under and through to the cosy, quiet company of the grey, ancient ruined abbey walls, its cloisters invoking us still into shushed contemplation. For the office workers on their breaks, the nursery nurses nursing their tired backs, the tense teachers calming, the shop workers taking the weight off, and look back. There's me as a child, with some of my sisters and our dad, at my favourite Sunday get-us-out-of-the-house spot, when you could run round and through the abbey's arches, clamber like crazy on its flint-sharp, knee-bleeding shoulders, never quite stopping long enough to absorb the conspicuous history there, towering tall and unshakably sure. Of the first Henry who built it, and the 8th who dissolved it. In the unconquered kaleidoscope corner of my child's mind, when I was left in the luxury of lagging behind, I could, if I concentrated hard and tried, glimpse an image of sackcloth monks sleeping on the sandstony ground in austere rows, side by side by side. And once I was even witness to that mystery monk inscribing the lyrics of a Middle English madrigal in the corner of the cloister, while I hummed out one part of its 6-cannoned tune. Sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo. For us, the ruins never felt like a thing ruined and destroyed with an ill-famed past for some other people from before. The abbey was for the us right there in the now. It was holy, we owned it, and we loved it in all its mouldering glory. But if my so many memories cemented in these walls, like the stones there, were confiscated, I was never again to recall the caress of the cold, crumbling limestone on my little warm body as I pressed by to catch up with my sisters and my dad. Then in a tender corner of my adult mind, I visualised the chunks in the rocks of my foundation being chipped and hewn away as my childhood comes crashing, it comes tumbling down, until all that's left is the sky. And then look at me, watch me, as I take a large running leap and try to scale the neighbouring prison wall, and then lock me up and leave me there for years to fester like Oscar, writing love letters and ballads in the jail. I beg you, just leave me there in longing, looking up at that little tent of blue, which prisoners call the sky, and at every wandering cloud that trails its ravelled fleeces by. take my hand. We're a town of many parks. We love them. We have a council page that lists them. They calm us and hold us and lure us in with their leafy limbs, then usher us along to the football fields or the gentle welcome of the bowling club with its regular buzz cut. We look through to a friendly fuzz of green in a picture-perfect square, the tenderly tended 2 perfect gardens and tree-tacked invitations to come join in. Just wear some soft shoes. I peer in daily, covertly waiting for the time to feel not too young to take up that offer. Come in, join us, have a go. The ladies would be glad. They need more numbers. Soft shoes dwindling in unknown numbers. The ebb and the flow of lives living. Love's lost. Take my hand. And we wait like you do in other towns like ours for the springtime snogs of the not blue bluebells, all gorgeous and gloating in their glory. The power to turn heads, bringing new bodies to the untrodden down grass, on darkening paths to where the birds play cuckoo and the tottering cheese logs make magic in the dank, sultry ground. The people come with cameras and poses, take umpteen unseen pictures to document their findings, but finding love and yearning in the flora and leaving all woozy from breathing the birdsong oxygen, all giddy with towny pride for our parks. And the dogs come rushing to their meeting places, sucking in the scents and sounds of their twice daily rounds. There's an etiquette in canine culture upheld in the shared green places of our town, where erstwhile strangers whose dogs like to play are compelled to stand together with more regularity than the closest of mates, to bask in the shared intimacy of their love of a dog, talking in smiles of adoration, quipping, sharing raw new news of sickness, of beginnings, of ends. Though we never even learned each other's names. For dogs don't care for class or place or what side of town. They don't know that they bring us together to stand with these folks we would never have otherwise known. We are connected in our parks, in this town of many parks. We love them, we list them. I heart Prospect, Kensington, McIlroy. Insert name of your park here. Take my hand. Take my hand and look up and listen and sway to the mesmerising high-rolling holler, the laughing, looping sigh that is the rise and fall of the red kite's call. Count them in twos as they patrol above the town, their deep forked antennae tails like a super surveillance system plotting the movements of the unsuspecting residents as they look down. These beings, these out-of-town birds that look so out of place, yet are so much part of the bigger picture, sitting in the upper strata in red, brown, white flash threads. But remember, in our hearts we hold a special place for an older bird of supersonic fame. Its twice daily booms, once a compulsion for everyone together at the same time, the whole town wide, to look up. Starting as a mumbling disquiet in the distance, the prologue to its call, can you feel it? Boom! Its fleeting vociferous visit waking all the babies in the prams as it flashed so flashy through the blue. Then in a heartbeat, the clouds closing behind its fine aquiline form, the air allowed to settle. It was gone. Then in a heartbeat it came no more, and all the parents of the stirring babies and all of their babies' cried for the loss of the super sleek big white bird in our skies. Boom! So look up beyond the red clay roofs, past the jagged aerials all askew. Look up beyond the apex plaza blue, see the looming blade's long nailed finger pointing, saying, look up, up, up. Let's lie on our backs in the gardens, in the parks. Let's get out of our cars in the queues in the car park of the Royal Barks. Let's lie looking up at the mural on the Central Club wall. Lie down in Marketplace and let Elvis serenade us on our backs in the Butts or the Broad Street Mall. Over at Cemetery Junction, lie down alongside the gravesides there and lay down your ears on the pavements of the Oxford Road between the mosque and Music Man, and hear the carnival vibrations still swelling in the warm tarmac ground, and let our hearts beat with the cadence of the steel pans. Lay your heads by the waters of the Holy Brook, and down by the restaurants on the riverside, and on the soft pitch of the Madejski alongside the rallying chorus of fans. Lie along the Northumberland Avenue, along the length of the London Road, and spread eagled in the meadows of Caversham. Let us lie on all the bridges across the Thames, as the wind carries the roar of the festival crowds, and as the music swells, we can take each other by the hand as we lie down and sing in protest in Reading jail's cells. Then, side by side, we'll lie with the monks on the monastery ground, to be washed in the river of a hypnotic, polyphonic round. Then look up at the red kites calling to us as they look down over our town. And let's sing back. Let's sing with the voice of our town.